Hello and welcome. What is your question?
Yeah, so hi Sherry. So my question is, I watched that video about where you said
You
about
watched
gratitude.
what?
I watched one of the videos where you was talking about gratitude and abundance,
Mm-hmm.
and that was
Very good.
really mind-blowing for me because I haven't heard of that sort of concept. So I just wanted to know how could I like relate more to abundance? Because the gratitude list is easy for me because I'm connected to the things what I'm sort of doing. And with abundance, obviously I'm aware there's abundance, but because there's no like personal sort of connection, how can I sort of get more connected to it?
Yeah,
And
that,
yeah.
that's a great question. I'm glad you enjoyed that video. It's very powerful. There are actually two different ways that I guess mainstream manifesting kind of doesn't doesn't highlight or walk you through the process of this. And so I'll start with the abundance, but I do have something on the gratitude that I'm going to follow up with for you. So to immerse yourself in abundance, because primarily we all think of abundance as only being financial or prosperity or money. We all want an abundance of money, but in truth, abundance is literally all around us. We are ourselves are abundant, but nobody has taught you to sit with this fact that you are abundant and that there is abundance within you. And we take that as just an accepted fact, right? Like we're abundant and we all think, yeah, I know that. I know that I'm abundant. I hear that I'm abundant, but where's my money, right? And so the interesting thing there is to connect more to abundance. You have to start by looking in to where you are abundant, right? So there are so many levels to this, and I'm going to take you through them. And so abundance really begins with you are abundant. You have an abundance of cells in your body. You have an abundance of bugs in your gut. You have an abundance of brain cells. You have an abundance of thought. You have an abundance of capacity to breathe. You have an abundance of hairs on your head. You might have an abundance of hairs on other parts of your body, but there's an abundance within you that we we aren't recognizing. And when you really want to move into abundance, when you really want to start at the smallest part of understanding abundance, understanding that you are abundance, that you have a bajillion trillion cells within your body, that you have a bajillion trillion bugs, that you have a bajillion, you have an abundance of mechanisms that work within your body, is the abundance that you are. Now let's take that a step further and let's move outside of ourselves, because that's what we interface with more than anything. And so to be abundant in the external experience, now that we've covered just a small portion of the internal experience, right? Like just thinking of all of the breaths you've taken over your life, it's been an abundance. You've lost count. You've had an abundance of days, things like that. But moving into the external experience, the abundance that you have in an external experience is going out and seeing that there are an abundance of trees. There are an abundance of cars. There are an abundance of people. You see, what we're doing here is training the mind to see overflow, rather than what the mind does is your reticular activating system cancels out these things like all around you. So like you're walking down a street in London and there's an abundance of people, an abundance of cars. They don't matter to you. They don't matter because they're not part of your story, and they're not part of what you at this moment consider your creative process. But if you move into a place where you can appreciate all abundance and realize that all abundance is part of you, because these people are made of the same types of cells and they're taking the same breaths, you're breathing the same air, y'all are drinking the same water, and it's going through the life cycle of water. There's an abundance of cycles that water goes through that has been passing through humans, animals, beasts, and plants for eternity. there's an abundance of those droplets. So at any moment, you are immersed in absolute abundance, but people lose this because they discount that. They discount the way, the people are just other people living their lives, and that's fine. But you have to realize there's an abundance of people. There's an abundance of cars. There's an abundance of bus drivers. There's an abundance of businesses, right? And so as you're going through your day, taking in the abundance of all that is, you notice that there's an abundance of birds chirping in the morning, and there's an abundance of trees. There's an abundance of leaves. And then even beyond that, if you walk out into your garden or your yard, you have an abundance of grass if you have grass. But you go to a park, there's an abundance of blades of grass. And then within that is, an abundance of insects, which aren't my favorite part of it. But you go to the beach and there's an abundance of sand. And this all sounds so simple. But the problem is, and the reason that this is so extraordinarily significant in the most fantastic way, is that because we have crawled down into this, we've come from this big space of abundance, and as life happens to us, we move down into this very narrow view of abundance. That abundance is only if we have money. And what we want to do is we want to get back into that big open space of abundance. And this flips the mentality of lack. This flips the mentality of scarcity. This flips the mentality of all of the things that most people are living on a daily basis. And so when we look at that and we go, okay, so there's an abundance of drops of water in the ocean. There's an abundance of sand. And when we stand in awe of that abundance and we stand in acknowledgement of that abundance, then we really can stand in awe of the universe and the abundance that it holds for us, the abundance of stars, the abundance of planets, the abundance of universes and galaxies and gods and deities, and the abundance of nail polish colors. There's an abundance of nail polish colors. There's an abundance of sandwiches, an abundance of meats, an abundance of macaroons. There's an abundance of the amounts of things that are available to us, whether we can afford them or not, are there for us to take in and notice the abundance, never ending, right? Like if you go into a French bakery and they have macaroons, like it seems like there could be a never ending row of macaroons of all the flavors and colors and tastes that are created. And all of those macaroons are made in absolute abundance. They don't say, no, we've already made 883 strawberry macaroons this year. We're not making any more. No, they just keep producing in abundance because abundance is. And this is a practice that once you really start moving into and experiencing and immersing, it's almost like drowning in abundance. Once you allow yourself to become so deeply immersed in the fact that this is an abundant world, abundance is all around you, and then you start recognizing the abundance in you, and then you even go into your home and you have an abundance. Even if you go get a 1 pound bag of rice, there's an abundance of grains in it. If you get a box of oatmeal, there's an abundance of grains in it. If you get a shaker of salt, there's an abundance of grains in it. And if you buy noodles, there's an abundance of noodles. It might only be a pound, but it's a great number, right? And you buy beans, there's an abundance of beans. And this is what abundance looks like. Now, we take that a step further and go, so you've only bought a small portion of blueberries. So maybe you only have 100 blueberries, right? But blueberries are immensely abundant on this planet. So like you've just partaken a small portion of abundance. And what happens is your brain starts reacting in a different way and seeing everything in a different way. And you start looking at the money that you have, like, of course there's an abundance of money. They're always printing more money to the tune, like in this country, in the United States. I don't even want to know what they're printing it to, but our debt is like 31 trillion bajillion dollars. And so like that's an abundance of money. So like there's an abundance of debt. So for there to be an abundance of debt, there also must be an abundance of money that can fill that debt. And then there was an abundance of, supposedly, an abundance of goods and services and value that was traded for that debt. And for that debt to then accumulate an abundance of goods and services and value, there's an abundance of happiness and people who are relieved and people who are satisfied and people who have been served and people who are better for it. And the problem is we become so finite and so narrow in our thinking that this abundance factor really opens everything up, and it retrains your reticular activating system. It reprograms you. It's a brain hack so that you actually start to see abundance is all around you. Your brain is looking for more abundance, and then you start to feel more abundant and you experience more abundance. So you take in more of this in abundance, an abundance of breath, a never-ending abundance of breath is yours. And just like that, and it seems impossible and it seems like it won't make sense, and it's not an overnight practice, but this is the thing, and this is true abundance. Like I've just broken abundance down to the absolute minutia scale of abundance. I hope in a way that you've never heard before. Did that satisfy that question?
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Yeah, I think what I really got was, yeah, just the really noticing it and starting with obviously myself, because that's where everything starts. And then I can really see how that then connects to then being eventually to being grateful. And yeah, and also like thinking about money in a different way. So yeah, thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I want to take that a step further because I promised you that I would talk about taking that into gratitude, because then with gratitude, you said something very interesting in your call. You said, you know, I can be grateful for the things because they're connected to me. But can you be grateful for all of the things that are just not even connected for you? Right? So like, can you be grateful that your neighbor got a raise? Can you be grateful that this person down the street got strawberries? Can you be grateful that this other person got a home, even though you've been wanting it? Can you be grateful? And this isn't just like, I'm not speaking to you and admonishing you, but I'm just saying in theoretical terms, when we can start to be grateful for all that other people have, and when we can start to be grateful for all of the things that are just not only inherently connected to us, because if we're only being grateful for what we have, that's still a level of lack, and it's still cutting off abundance. So this is like abundance, you know, 2.0, I suppose. But when you can get to the point that you're abundant even for things that you don't have, like you walk in the grocery store and there's an abundance of things available to you, you could be grateful for that. And if there's an abundance of people, you could be grateful for that, just because more people means that you have more opportunities to manifest things, because things are manifested through people. That's how we operate on this planet. And so to notice and be grateful, even for that which you do not have, just out of the pure awesomeness. And it sounds very like out there and very esoterical and very intangible, and I get that. But to be grateful that there's even $1 trillion circulating on the planet, to be grateful that there's so much opportunity on the planet, to be grateful that we have an internet, to be grateful that we have all kinds of things that people before us didn't have access. This truly is the most remarkable, spectacular time in the history of mankind in this last season that we've been living. That is just extraordinary. And to be grateful for all of the opportunity and all of the advancements, right? That is a form of gratitude that people miss because they're not focused on it, because they don't have it. It's easy to walk in your house and say, well, I'm grateful to have this chair to sit on, but I'd still like a better chair. And that's not gratitude, really. That's like, I have to be grateful for what I have. But you could be grateful that somebody out there is making you the chair that you want, and you just have to take the time to happen upon it. There is a point even beyond the gratitude that we recognize, that allows us to go into deeper gratitude. And I say this, and I will say this, because gratitude alone will not get you there, but it's the mix of who you are. You can't be the most grateful and abundant person and reside in poverty and lack. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's an ingredient to the recipe. And it's the piece that people don't want to spend time on because it is so unsexy. So unsexy. But it really is the up level that will take things further. And especially when you're using your personal manifesting formula. Did that clear things up for you even more?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Sherry. That's really helpful, and I can really see that. So thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm glad that it's helped you.